na programme to again ning funding kelka programme o min ke andun ka ke Gunjur online wala muy la television o min be fonyo kono bi fanan arabo don nata murun janne karo bi tilitan nin saylom August karo 2021 time o be dami Angleterre wala mu tala wora wala tambita miniti nani la Gambia ngamra tala wora tambita miniti nan na America ma fa wala talan killing tambita miniti nani la bi fanan nata pour ka continuer kan badala boring wol min bije kabo katon na fo katafo banjun katafo bakaw wolito anin tanje nin Gunjur be wolfana ila reporto mi yalon ko nga reporto min soto pour kayla ila community fisheries centers wala muna bada boring dola dokol min ka keje mansakunda la karola bimbe wol reporto nga kumasle last week ñi don fanan be continuer la pour ka jibe ka kisi role ka o reporto ta ka a faramfansa moliye ka bondi moliye nyoto once again ninna momi be wala alfaba wala mu Nuha wala moti mi ya lonko aka mako pour ka wol bondi nyenyo kono endum Nuha be bismillah la programme to dialogue with the youth so on Gunjur online
baraka baka Ibrahim mbe lamor lal min juber lal be kontona ke bismillah nyim programme o nyinto ñimu programme ne teme alon ka ko matale kantum fen ko ne atra abeden ni funding kella karola bar hanatra manke wala bi nga programme men samanan ko men ka continue the last week nga programme men ke wala mu community fisheries centers wala mu bade ma bundal ti min alon ko be na badala tundolla pour kana kodo men ditela anin kodo nyin tamata nyaadile anin do ko nyim fon ka tama nyaadile o dinkiral do Ibrahima o kacani amunta be continue kan walla arbutun insa microphone o murende kan lamor lan ni juber lal be bismillah.
Yeah, once again, once again, we are back today, Wednesday, 18th of August, 2021. The time in the United Kingdom is almost 7 o'clock. The time in the Gambia, it's about 6 o'clock. Once again, we are here with our analysis of performance report on community fisheries centers. This is going to be our part 2. Because we have the Gambia have potentials, and one of the key potential is our fisheries department, our oceans, our seas, and the environment around them. If we harness them and then manage them properly, might be youth unemployment around those areas will be significantly reduced. But one, government might be they don't have ideas. 2, they don't manage these things properly. 3, there's a lot of corruption at the local level also. But yes, if there is no accountability, people just do whatever they want. There's no coordinated effort to harness this very, very productive sector of our economy. But alas, in the wake of corruption, in the wake of lack of investment and ideas, to develop this sector, corruption reigns supreme there, and to the detriment of our country, because our youths are going in droves to back ways. And we know the consequences there. Nobody should tell anybody the consequence of our youth flying. Not to travel to other places or migrate, but to use the irregular migration route and the catastrophic loss of life and the mental health issues. We can see it all over the place. So therefore, we have no choice. These cars come home because it's my own place, Gunjur. But Gunjur, Gambia is bigger than Gunjur. Gambia is bigger than any individual town or city or community in the Gambia or individual. So we have to analyze things so that people can understand and they can know the potentials that we have. And if we harness them properly and we have good leaders, we will be able to significantly reduce poverty. We will reduce, the illegal migration of our youths and the consequence that they face on those very, very dangerous routes. Once again, we have our intellectual giant, Dr. Nuha, with us to analyze this report for us, for our benefit. Nuha mbe bismillah lambe tentu lambe jaila purunga na murunga nyinkuota ye continue ya dandamin num nse continue wota baraka baba ke kibatu.
Baraka Ibrahima, Dr. Yaka imbo na fo nyin sendlale nse continue drum, but coming minimum program on nyin jube num o kuntambila pour que quickly ke hakilo murundi nan programme nyin ngom munati anen mune famo be kering ka mune jube me men jube kan wala auditor la reporti membe dendi ni na community fisheries center la so ni ko community fisheries centers wala mu ni dema bunda la mine alon ko iben famol la satel kono la ni ala history jibe akuma sata Gambia banko kanyami ko ngafo nyami wo lokun tambila brin 1979 lam akonyin kuma sata yo akko kuma sata nyami wala nyinti ko center tannin sele lo Gambia mume bekan yo nyin center tannin seo center nani wollel be na badara tundolla fankasola karola wallam gunjurti tanje bakaw anim banjulti den nyin tannin nano men tutaje yewolo santol kata kerwan nyolto tendaba nyolto badal la da riba Gambia be daminu ay stratel minul ma ye nyin tannin nanol belo wala to yo bari mbebi mento kabo 1979 kana sawo sang nyin fisheries centrale ka fa santo tole fo ayatin na bi mento sa fono men nako fisheries central be tama kanne tama nyala me alon ko hanama mo nyaabo bari sa fo ko be juma kanne wol mu nyin centenano lelti wala mu banjulti gunjur tanje anim bakaw yo bari auditor la tama fana kara kanyin kul kisi ka jube bawo nganyil lonko Gambia man sakunda makoyro so Taiwan anin Ostand anin Japan bulu men kanyanta $1 million tannin warola dollar wilke masay kodo la me alon ko ya dundini baade mola kulkunna Ibrahim yo kodo nyi inata talantalan ne so nawlo kun tambla programme o ngayitandile kodo nyin talanta nyame yo nataji fana men kake nyin central to Ibrahim wala nyinti ko kodo nyin men kadung abuka safe kodo men ka defense fana dinkira dol fangol to wol fangol buka safe roke wol ka kodo nyin ka do mole dron birin auditor ye nyin ka banjul nyol dol ton ko iman na auditing fon warandi woto bawo fenteje kaytiteje auditor ye yitandiro men ka wala nyinti ko na man ka gunjur nin tanjete wollel fangol ye cash book soto cash book wala buko de mi alon ko e ka kodo la defense anin kodo dunya e ka safe buko min kono accountant ol ka folen ko cash book naman ke gunjurti anin tanje wollel ye wo fanaso bar woldum fanalu auditor le yitandiro men ke wolam nyinti ko ila safiro fo man kat kantum gunjur wol fongole me yitande wolam nyinti ko kodo nyin ibukake bank foni yela defensol be bondije so ni yela defensol bondije lam kodito ni ngatra fentu taje o taymol me ka samba bank so way me yitande Ibrahim wolam nyinti ko kodo fonka dun defensol minul kunna receipt bukatar walla ka safara dron ka fuko nga kodo dundi nyin kula kunna bari sai men sa yitande ko tonya kodo dunta nyin kunna le wala buka yitande so nataje fana mol minul marata walla mu Alhasan Dabo nyolti ane Yusufa Sao walla marata gunjur la ni community fisheries center nyin yo bakawdum fana nata men jeje tinyaro men kataje wala nyinti ko won kodo men kadum iko itol buka safe bari ka kodo nyindi alkalol so alkalo nyin ko ditol nata nyin ka sain alkal jimal ka kodo di walla ko sai wo alkalo nyin fo man taraje so amunta kodo min dunta alkalo bul kodo ma murun nam fisheries birin alkalo bolaje fo alkalo nyin fa bandala bang fo andum ya bonde alkali alla bang auditor la report mo yitande bari butun do kulal minul beje may yitande wala nyinti ko kodo kadum alkalo pour nyin kammala ni bank account yele wato wati sita kodo nyinta alkalo bul yeta ya dunde account bakaw ngajele wolman account fonds to mumek so gunjurnin tanje wala account ol soto andum nata mem fanaje wala nyinti ko ye kulumol sambale baade maram kulumol anin kulum masingol ke di nyin community center la yo gunjur ye kulumol dilal men yalon ko asiata andum ye masingol fanal dilal so ni ajiwe nyin central mu me beto kulun tan sabanin saba ye wala talay tema andin masin kulum masingol fana tan sabanin saba auditor la reporto fana na tayitan le Ibrahima ko amanke ko kulumol damma fa anin masingol damma ye wallal dila bari inata hanini kerangol kay nyewol ke minul kono ka fumini len ko trail yewol fangol dilal par auditor la reporto e mayitande wala nyinti ko ibuka saferoke ni bagasol dila ibuka safe ko ngani bagas nan kamul lel so comme accountant ka fumien ko assets register so wo kuwe Ministry of Fisheries male ay community fisheries centers fanama bawo Ministry of Fisheries me alonko e tollale nyim bagasol muta ye samba ke di nyin community fisheries center itol fawol ma safa ye men di nyin center la so auditol la kiskisro to lam hani kodo fawol karola inataje ko e banjul ye dollar million woro le dila nyin dollar million tan woro wulo kono e bakaw ye dollar million woro le dila tanje ye dollar million nani dollar wil kemelul le dila bari gunjur ye dollar million woro wula le dila pour ka dundi nyim bade mo la ko so ni na ta jibe Ibrahim e aja halo warta bake dollar million woro wula wodunta sate o sate to inyanta kujele jele me alon ka be nyafa bari hani e nyin ice trocol minul fongol sang gunjuru ye sabale soto bari masingol moto nyinul fongol ice trocol nyinul fongol oditol ko ila kiskisiroto e meje al halto me alon ko ay nyaabo e motol nyinul fongol bebe lorin yo ni nata tanje o motol wala motol fongol be yemantal yo gunjur ngamira mbatu ngaji be oditol e mem faja wala ko moto kilimbe je yo wafile bari say moto nyim wafi ta jimalle le moto nyim wafi mo man soto membe lola andun kayta fana man finti kayitandi ko kari nyollele moto nyim wafi ya wafi karlele ya wafi nyim kudin nangamun ne so moto fana yemanta gunjurle minul ya wafi amallon a wafi takodo men amallon femman safe so ñinul be mo kulete me alon ko Ibrahim ay de mola karola ay nasindi bakele ni natan nanyim fankas borim dolla an sebula yewoto nyamba jannimbe tambila kana bi programme oni commencé.
Thank you Nuha ambe konton la baba ke ngalon ne ko docteur Taytulo hannen dara non manje abe jam farin do manding bari butu wo makamo fangole futata wola ning topoti in the context bawo e kamoje la makamo ka tambi Taytulo mi ya lon ko mo formality di dobije mbe tetula mbe jayla alama wali continue la ye futela as quickly as possible yombe sal cham fanan konton na butu malon fo sabe jin ko lo mati ba malon nin sabe jin ko mati mbate block la kana gunjurun ko la fenko no anyanta sabe fanan ta fo la le no yalo yeah so mba fo la momo be jin programme o jibe ka ye programme o nyin se no nyin kumaya ta baba kele nyin manke like be mo le no ma wonan ka witch hunt leke in lafta min na wala mu pour banko aka kono fengol min bije pour nge soto no nge do kundi pour at least funding kelu nim faria min bije baka ba tol dam matante o badati bawo hanen tol dingol min tina wol fanan dingol wol be nyanta balula wo badatole ino ana dende wala nun gambia be le kamati no pour resources oli na be ti nyama wo mu bala fa baleti bare wo kami tandi ron na masakundalo iman serious wala ministry wala min fanan bije man serious bawo nite nyini ko mu me beke ibe ka record fa so tete min di molla wo record fa man taraje woto wo mu recipe ti babol kamin for recipe for disaster lo woti wow ye kenole da mi ya lonko e su nyaaro le na fena no mbe nyaato janni be nyim programme nyim fanna nyi wala da nyim banna ibe fola nyele se min leke no pour ka nyin sifal stop pour nyin sifal kana ke do bi ordinary people all ye ko do ta ya jurumi bulo ko no nyin nyamate ti man direction di le to ya mire nyanta kala nyal bawo nim moli yalo nin clear path bi je mi yalo ko mo be nyanta wota la yo no tendung may bi ibe sila la fan kanyinke bar ni aji mo be nyin sila la ka fo ko ngamoto tale nga wa fu man salam moto wo mu hani ba leti ba o ya lon ko kumanta kilel so ise continue ngata nga kumasi de baraka ba
baraka Ibrahim baraka jannimbe dunna depensol kunna c'est ni structural fongol jibe comme ni community fisheries ila maral nyaabe loring kullel kam so ni na ha jibe ngagunjur nin tanjele jibe bawo niyaje problème o keta dulato ila kiskisro nyanta futala nyin nala ka jibe mune yo problème o nyin sabu yo maralo ka ke nyami akatina le problème o nyin akatarajele so na taw jibe bar butum gunjur wala me yitande wala nyinti ko auditor la auditinye wato min koba ya yitandi la ko do min itolia soto nyin ice wa fola kodo nyin kanyanta dalasi million nani dalasi wili kema woro dalasi wili taw woro wula dalasi kema kononto dalasi tansa banin kile o kodo nyine dunda bar butum bring auditor nata yela kiskisiroke inata alasan dabo ne yusufa sawo nyinen ka sai altole nyin na fulo nyin men dundi ani nyin dollar million woro wulo men be dunda kunjur ani aliye depensol minul ka ni aliye kuol minul beke bawo alman kaytol be findin badun sai al kodo nyi aketa min tole ye me yitande auditor la wala minti ko kodo nyi ninga dunda ninga ice nyon wafin kan na depensol gondi jere nin to tutage mi alon ko fon nga jibe ko mansula la fulon ka wala ke bank so inata mem fo auditor le wala minti ko kodo min be bank wo time bawo ye account fulala so savings anin current account your savings wala mu mabor dulat mi alon ko bank ke jole pour ka kodo mabu je dalilo men kam your current account wala account mi alon ko ni be kodo nyim bondi la je e ka cheko le safe yo ñing account flow gunjur community fisheries center yo wala soto ye me yitande wala la savings account kodo min be je akanyanta wil kema fula wil tannani woro dalas kema kononto dalas tannani anin trans ila current account to membe je wil keme saba wil mo wannim fula dalas keme lul dalas tanseni woro wala anin talani budut woro wollel be ila account to tembo nyinna andu minul ya lon ko wollel marata nyi account la pour ka kodo dundige walla ka fintindide walla mo alasan dabote ani yusufa saho comme auditor la report nyi ay tan nyame yo but pour ka murul nan ron kana ka nyi community fisheries membe gunjur ani membe tanje ila management structure be nyame yo ni nata gunjur jube gunjur membe apunto santo wala mo ila president so community fisheries center membe gunjur e president soto ni bota president to e ka jinang ila vice president so ni bota ila vice president to village development committee bo leto bari village development committee itol fanal ni fisheries assistant ni e ni wala be tembe kiring nim mo safo ko sembola karola e ni wala e sembe kilin soto yo bari fisheries assistant ate fisheries department wala wota do wala ya kinan kana gunjur pour que makoy inin village development committee se do ko ke ka president support anala vice president pour ka ñim fisheries project ko ñing ka mara ay tra mara nya kendo kon yo bari auditor la report o me yitande Ibrahim wala ñinti ko ñim fisheries assistant wala ye minul samanan gunjur anin tanje kata bakawni banjul wol fangol me bulubani mara fon bo nyoto wol mum bo nyolati wol fangol malon ni be dunna kulun kono fangi be nyanta dunna kulun kono nyame so wol buka wol te yamaro keno la baade malal la ka foyen ko al nyanta nyin jala sifa lel tala ka baade mo kala walla al manyen na nyin jala sifa tala wol fangol malon baade mo kol kata nyame e man jalol sifal bondino nyoto so aya tinnale wol be jele dron dankon dron so we me yitande wala nyanti ko Ibrahim me yalon ko atele nyanta kala man sakunda nyaani nga tuloti gunjur fisheries project ko nyento wo fon finkital ase hakatu mol min yalon ko wala njuro yesoto amanke ko jututelale par comme misali felam wolu imman fenne long do kuoto e nyanta tamandi la nyame so way me yitande wala nyinti Ibrahima do ko nyim bukata nyam par ni nata village development committee nyum fana ko to jibe inata talaro menke wala nyinti ko ye engineer sotole ye secretary soto mi alon ko wala ka saferol ke kala letterol safe kala typing yol ke anding inata cashier fana sotol ni bota auto den inata ba de malal sotole ka fomino le selos andu ye nye sisindilal sotole andu ye nye jalal fanal sotole ande ni nata jibe nata ice inspector fanal sotol konole andu caretaker fanal nata tarajele so ñinul lel mum molti min ya lonko wol ke danku village development committee lella so wala do ko village development committee wala ñanta o cross la kaaje ko ñinul be la do ko tamandi kan anyamal yo way me yitandi wala ñinti ko ni ya jibe cashier fon damma cashier damma la beje ni nata ko do la karol ate cashier ñen Ibrahim atele be ko do ñim mutala atele be ko do ñim jola atele be depensol fanal kela atele be kol be safela so na yamarobe futala ñintol comme ñim tiñarol minul keta ñim fisheries central to mbe banno la ñaadile ñim mu classic example leti me ayi tandi ko tiñaro se keno la bawo ete mo kilu ete men ka kodo muta ete la ka kodo jo ete la ka safe ete la ka samba bank so wose ku keno le men diata ya abole safela so womo classic example kilene bari na yamaro bina futala la programme ñin dandula to kayi tandi men ñanta kelantela jeroto pour kaaje ko ñin kasarol minul keta ñin communities fisheries central to be banno la ñaadi la walla be talano la ñaadi yo ni na Gunjur jube bawo nga fok nga president soto nga vice president soto wallel be santo wallel fanal malata village development committee la VDC yo VDC woni fisheries assistant wallel fanal be tembe killing mini ya lon ko tollel kan do ko ke bulol be nyokono pour kaje ko kanyin engineer la mako ila do ko la kanyin secretary mako ila do ko la ka cashier mako ila do ko la nye jalal ni nye sisindlal ni mbade malal ke mako ila do ko la ice inspector minul fanal beje kawol fanal mako e kaje ko ice plantol minul beje repair ni maintenance ol minul nyanta kala ayeke a wato la andum kodo nyanta tar la cashier bulle pour ka kodo di ni ice inspector la pour ka ni masimol nyinul maintenance yo yena keate kan fanal jibe wol fanal la do ko be je kaje ko itollel be mararin ka fengol topato lallel mu wolti wol manyen na sila kaje ko masimol be tinyala yo ngana talol dolje nyin audit report to me nyin ice plantol je masimol be tinyari masimol be commanding yo bari gunjurum ko do tonya mose song elaw ko mo la le me yitande wala nyinti ko masimol dolbe je min ya lonko ila jorangol fangol bu kaso de gambia ila jorangol kasan senegal le wala japan so o ketebul ko ya kuti pour kay ni masimol ñinu repair bawo e buka jorawol ñinu sotono ni koy be jorawol sanna ka banan senegal jorawol da jawyatal man sakunda man ma koy ka ferol dila wala ka fanko dila pour ñin kamala e se jorawol sanno na ñamen ka banan japan ke sabanan gundor to some extent nse sonno o kumola le nse balafano ye ila do ko kono bar kono mi alon ko adunta woto hani momantano japan bari nyanta mo wulino lal min bitala senegal ay joramol sang ka masingol ñino repair ka kodo ñi manage ku ke kaaje ko masingol minul beje e be tama kan e nyamal yo ni na taw jube yamuru yena tanje wala management structure be nyame woliye central committee la soto santo comme Gunjur ya president soto nyame o central committee koto wol fanal nata sub committee soto wala committee ba soto santo o koto la inata committee ndingo soto yo ni bota o committee ndingoto inata management committee fana soto o management committee wala ni assistant fisheries officer nyimbe sembe kilimoto yo wol fanal koto la inata administration soto je ya finance soto yo administration koto bade malal bollel koto nye jalal bollel koto nye sisindlal fanal bollel koto den ni nata finance jibe kashiya fana boleto so the same problem nga menje Gunjur kodo la karola wala keta tanje fana bawo mo kilimo atele marata kodol atele ka safe atele ka muta atele ka defense atele ka samba bank so woyelan juro le yitande me alonko kodo se kasara no le nyasio be nyama janninga ko be fintila ase watita fani auditol nata bari ni auditol fana nata e buka fenjeno bawo kodol nyinu e kadu nyami ani kabo nyami abuka safe so we kole akuetan so ni na ni management structure fulol jube Ibrahim consistency man traje wala nyimti ko kol be ke sifa kilingoti bawo nyinul be mu central le timini alonko e tollel be ma fan kiling e tollel be tundi kiling woto ila e maral nyal be nyanta kala kilinnati ma fa ko ngol minul be je ila mankutol be kala kilinnati bari maral nyaalu maralo nyanta tamala nyami wol be nyanta kala kilinet e baaje la koy damol se karanno nyobulule yaaje ko ku kendol minul be ke kan tanje Gunjur kol sinano jele yo ku kendol karam Gunjur bul wala ku kendol minul be ke kan Gunjur tanje kol yana yo ku kendol karan tanje bul e damol kadiyamu ka jibe e be kol yirwandi no la nyaadi le pro yim badala satelu fondinkel se makamo soto no nyamen ka do kol soto wala ka business ol keje wala sate mol fangol se imuna fanno nyin project kol kono nyami nyindel mu kuti mine alon ko e nyanta kala Ibrahim nse bula e woto jansa folo
yeah baraka bake once again keban mbe nkotoma na londi tiba mun karamoti wala msajo bayanti mba konton na fanambe programo jibe kan abe konton dirola ko clear and relevant always kebanu abe of como sembendilela ali toure fanan ko very interesting program. We need to know where our resources being handled. The situation in the Gambia is very sad. Salco 5 years of proper tax system and the natural resources from Gunjur can sustain Gunjur for 25 years towards sustainable development. Proper energy and water supply, school, hospital, roads, etc. That's the key. You know, Kibanwa Sajo ya none afo jangala program otoko forecast for Gunjur Lebekela and ports again, which I really, really like, I only hope it materialized, but new work at our employment or mean generate la, and in fisheries and in many things, quite can important thing. But left in Kala min na Janni Bitala, one of the president and then vice president, wall for government they employ bang, and then need at a VDC and VDC ngalon the fisheries assistants wall government ne nati na venanja nin secretary link kasia sol many along ko beje welcome maranyin kodibala because imagine about 7 million US dollar yole di kunjuru bada damal. So mun kasia le mun criteria like approve kasia le water for government ne keje but ni ajibe fanang system of coordination mantaraje comme ya fo nyame system mantaraje me uniform system lo me alon ko somebody can even monitor behind but ne nyindi nyimol mu me be la me alon ko man competence soto man skills soto then comme mi yanda ta nyawnya at the end of the day drong ko nyaton ko ta ye blame mini yalon ko yin system sifa mi yalon ko so chaotic because Niajibe the president is there, vice president, the VDC is there for the president on even for government employee long for sate la fen ko mol sate le ta dro ye kenyin dulali to wol mu ko lete mi yalon ko abalafa warata baba kele nyimbi kolo ko sabe jin kolo kela kafolo nyamin adindin tulun tabiri malo momo min diata doro yewo ta yewo ke system man je coordination man taraje because nim banko hannen darono ye another 20 billion di nyim system wala again ke banwa abebe tala la filter down in the porous system mi alon ka be nyama inte benefit or benefit jelaje. But once again, before going back to Nuha, we are doing some analysis of performance report on community fisheries centers. This is part 2 of it. We know only Gunjur about nearly $7 million US was given to them. And this is to encourage, generate employment for our youths, to create, infrastructural development and to harness the potential of our coastal regions, fisheries departments and all those things and all the extended businesses that are there. There are shops there, they have, fish smoking areas there and all those who are all charged. And then amounts should be pumped into the society, into the country to create a lot of employment for our youths, to stamp out or to stamp off the mass migration through back way, with the catastrophic consequences that is happening to our youth. A country that is only exporting their own talent, their human resources, instead of harnessing the youth, their energy, their talents to generate the engines of our economy so that we can have growth, we can live happily in our country. We can travel to other countries using our own money, not to use dinghy boats where people are chasing, cat and mouse with other securities. For us, it's a disgrace. So, quality many along become happened in the Bankolikam. Fonge diam, akwaleata nyaonya, ba onye report, especially Gunjur in the Bonita Walleto. A more toll for Nindula, more bada or mumbading already. But we need to talk about these things so that funding kill, nkana nyi mistakes sifal make. For nkana ke tumaranke ati perpetually, walon katu de kamada dama katamoli adorong, katara in the fringes of high society. But we have intellectuals, many along is a impact sort of Bangkokang, is a terrestrial Bangkokang and the culture tanga embrace. So ni government failure, ni institutions mimu leadership to ni failure, ala effect akagarao baba bakele. Kodo minyanta sutolo Gunjuru bada to onyanta Gunjuru lopitano kela first class lopitano ledi. We have more se boro li sotono je. Where ni mosa satante moto nyine to drive all the way for ita brikama wolvanango motoman sotoji and all those things. So ni wokodul manage properly abe nyine kela. So individuals manya natale to le si wokodoka mazakunda be chaotic riwo nyama benga for at the end of the day ni sasata which is baila no na balu okono ni drop data jang wale heart attack soto janni be futandila banjun because Gunjur lopitano is of nafa mantarala. I was structure madam marabi fomol kasada dila when bada soto me yalon ko nin da mali en ko takin dinyol because Gunjur for example me and you report that I'm Karambatu relative. He's an expert. We have top lawyers, we have bankers, we have investment, bankers, we have finance managers all over, accountants, many along Gunjuru Marano properly. So that Ninkodo might be in government niaje into VDC in Kuolabulu. Nia manage ku might be kodo se filter back to Sateto as it I futa karador for the Gunjur Safa Monafa, Gambia Fanaya Fonafa. But ni woman came intendela no yinkang. And we sleepwalk into disaster. Keba no abaraka babake is a continual analysis la. It's fantastic program. Be molu dani la fana program o share so that funding keli senyulo. Mistake all mean be caring. Han nendaro no monku ke no nyindula to but it's all avoid no. Purun tol fana. Nse tara na moli fana nyara nyara kadun tol fana ya with our pride and with our everything intact. Abaraka babake keba no.
Abaraka Ibrahim, abaraka. Yenyin karo minke akuma tabakele. Pruka abumole nyoto. Nying community structure nying kono wala committee structure nying kono wala ila management structure nying kono maral nyanyin abe lori nyameng mansakundala dake oje womu fisheries assistant ol damalet mansakundala yolta ye ki nying fisheries center sto pour ye sate mol makoy yo president wala tombo nya ani nga vice president o ani village development committee sate mol fangol lel yoke president ni musate molati ala vice president musate molati yo ni nata tangue fana jube la central committee ani la subcommittee kata fo la management committee wol be musate molelti to lel fangol ya jube ikela ka follo nyamen ikela mol tombo nyamen e fangol lel yolta yenyi mol tombo kol nyimbe laring wala nyama manke ko man sakunda fongale e dake je alkar tombon hani gunjur kollel fonga ya jibe ko mbe kare kala president otile karle be kala la vice president oti yonna village development committee kono karnin kar nyolel be tarlaje ikela mol tombo nyamen pour que village development committee nyil londi man sakunda da man taraje sate mol fongol la baro lo wote yo bari wobeje nyaawo nyaani lul mu mollel timini alon ko gunjur kollel mu Ibrahim e tollel nyanta kala multimini ya lonko e benyim doku lal krosila ka jeko e doku kendo ke purnyin kamala sate e munafa yo nin tinyaro ketaje wota ate bolani village development committee koma nin jalay robinala be village development committee bawo e tollel mu watchman wat e tollel be sirin ka jeko e tollel e nyinulta doku e tollel ye keje so ni atra wol mantre la do ko ke kan to nyanta kala molle timi alon ko e be wol kunin na kayitan dila ko hey ngalta be nal mantra ke kan nin ajarata la faye bondi je modol sama je min alon ko e be lasna ka do ko ke ka sate ni yirwande ka project ko ni yirwan al hakato so wala mujabiroti ila nyinin karoto yo bar nata men je wala nyinti ko nyin senta nanolu ni e jibe ye depensol minul beke auditor la kiskiroto ye men jeno ni e bela nyo kan wala kanyanta million tanning killing dala civil kemesey wil tansey ni woro dala stallulu ani koparnane wala butut nade je ngamra kopar fula ban fu koparnane bar butut nani wala lata so wakata nyami wala nyinti ko ye kodoni ya talale ye men jo salaries wala mu dokulal minul beje min alon ko ye tale ye contrat ko dila anin dépense dol min ya lonko e mawol fatam fansa so fengo femme ya lonko amanke dokulal la joti anin dokulal la jo so bari nyimmume be ni nata gunjur jibe gunjur wala yakodo men dundi dokulal la jokunna akanyanta dalasi wil kemenan wil tannan ni woro dalasi kemelulu dalasi tankononto yo bari dépense dolu inata men dundi wokunna wala kanyanta dalasi million saba dalasi wil keme lulu wil tannan ni nani dalasi keme sey anin dalasi killing yo niyo fulol la nyo kan wala kanyanta dalasi million saba dalasi wil kononto wil tankononto nin killing dalasi keme saba anin dalasi tankononto nin killing yo bakaw wol ko ela do kulal jomen na dalasi wil keme wil tansenin saba dalasi keme lulu e bari inata dépense men fana dundi kudol kunna wala kanyanta dalasi wil keme saba wil tankononto dalasi keme woro dalasi taw lulu ni lulu niol fulol la nyo ka keta wil keme lulu wil taworo lani nani dalasi keme dalasi talul ni lulu banjul wolu imang do kulal jo auditor la report ay tan nyame kantum kayta man finti me ay tan ko e do kulal jo itol finalement fo auditor le fana e jelle jo do kulal kunna hanni atara do kulal beje kaytole me yitande wala nyindi wol man josor wol yake voluntary le yo tanje fana o kilimole beje bar tanje wal nata men dépense kudor kunna même manke salarilti o kanyanta dalas million woro wil kema woro wil taworo lanin kiling dalasi keme nani dalasi muwanni woro anin butut sey yo niye ñinul be kaf ñokan banjul ta wala men dépense kudol kunna dalasi wil kema woro wil tan konon wil tan nanin konon dalasi taworo lanin fula anin butut tan konon to ni woro niye ñinul be kaf ñokan wala kanyanta o million tannin kiling wil keme sey wil tan sey nin woroti but men nata men je wala ñinti ko tanjay men keta je wala ñinti ko Ibrahima wolko ye bank account sabale soto yo bari wo bank account sabo ñing fulo ñing abe management committee la bulo kilingo ñing wo be ila cashier la bulo yo cashier ko atema lon ko account flow be keri ne management committee be marari men management committee ko itol fanal malon ko cashier ñing ate fanal marari account o ñin la so ñin team flolu itol fangol be malon ko account do be jele management committee malon ko account o be jele so account o men be cashier ñim bulu e ka kodo men ke je wala mu fuel tanko ñi ye men luwasi ja oyelma karwo kari ake jo dalasi wilitanna wo wilitango ñi wala kadum wo account o ñin kono cashier ka woleta na al dépensol bondi je to min tutaje aya samba ñin account o ñin bar management committee wol malon ko account o ñin be je bar cashier dum fana malon ko ñin account flolu yara fon kodo kadu wo fana to le management committee be marari menna so wayemme yitande wala ñinti ko ya fayra ko mo kono ñami Ibrahima lack of coordination la beji kuol ñanta tembele ñamin wala man daraje so wala yatinna ñin team flol mini alon ko bebe do ku kilo wala kunne to famol dodol malon ko yara fam ko do be jelente mam men kalamata so akuja halo warta baka bar butum o mu tanjeleti tanjen kolleli akewo ñam yo ni na hajibe Ibrahima saim pour kana dum gunjur la dépense kunna jannin mbetambila auditole me yitande wala ñinti ko ñi ice trocol ye minul di ñi fisheries center la wol be kola ina tam moto fana do di la le ka fu me official vehicle so ñinul be ñi center nanol be momo ye official vehicle di la yo bari ñim motolu auditole ya yitande le ko motol ñinul be filter tanje fang wolu ñi fisheries trocol ñi ice trocol ye minul di la saba motol ñinul wol fanal be filter mo ma fo no auditole motol ñim dunta dami moto yemanta tanjel tum fo dunta bala kono bande maro
kewa non lafte wala murundi la je ko motol ñim filitale bang
wala motol ñinul yeme yitande wala auditole koy mam motol ñinul je so ye ñinin ka kele motol man mo mam moto yitande no mo mam moto findende no mo man kuma fo no fana motol ñinul dunta dami moto saba wol mo ice trocol lel yo bari official vehicle fana e même fana dila in addition to ice trocol wolu ñin center birum gunjur la kata bakaw banjul tanjey o motol fana be yemantal auditol la report o yayi tan ñay motol dunta dami mo man kuma soto no mo we même fono so ñimu kulet mi alon ko Ibrahima a jahalo wata bak bari me yente fon me yemma baake wala mu ni nata gunjur ni aje nga gunjur tombong ñing sate nanol kono because gunjur lam sate mi alon ko atle ko di jama soto o dollar million tan warawlo kono million warawlo be tata gunjur le so wala yatin nga gunjur tombong amanke ko lafta gunjur la ko lankena mala ñin dol beti bari butum gunjur ni nata jibe ndunta kela dépensol jibe itolu ye dépenso men ko million sabo bawo ya foko salary kola inata million sabanin fendundi dépense dol kunnal so nata kiskisuro ke auditor la report o ñin kono la kaaje ko o dépensol wallal mu munte yo nata menje je wala ñinti ko iko ye kodo ñin kodo warama faw ya mu medundi cash power kunna gunjurum kole me yitande wala ñinti ko dalasi million saba dalasi wil tanin sey dalasi keme warawla dalasi mo wani lulu yo wala jani cash power ni bota woto iko gaso malo ka gaso kemende askeno fu gaso wala ka ila fridge motol tamande ba malo bari gaso e ka fu me R22 gas ikoye dalasi wili keme wil tannin sey dalas keme lulu yo wala dundi gaso kunna yo wala dépense yo bar pour mol ya kalamuta Ibrahim ñing kodol kake dépense let mi alon ko ka safale tendro receipt buka finti hani cash pa wala receipt wol fongol be buka finti yo sa nin kodobe dépense la wo ñama payment voucher teje bawo accounting na sartole ñinti ko nin kodobe jola kayto la ñanta kodo fintin o kayto e ka fole payment voucher ñim fisheries central minul bebe je gunjur din tange wol fisata bawo at least wole cash buko sotole kela kol safi dame yi lafta minul safela yo bari ñin dol banjul lim bakaw wol date woto wol buka safe wol mam bugo fon soto bakaw fon mam bank account fon soto so ñin kodolu i ka safela dronko nga cash power sanne ñin nangamu dala si wilu fula bi ñin karo wala dala si wilu lulu ñin karo nga wala san cash power bari risito buka findi men ya itandi ko tonya ya wala san cash power yo ni nata auditor la period ñin jube ye même fo gunjurum kol ko dala si million saba dala si wil tannin sey dala si keme waro la dala si morning lulu 3,018,725 dollars iko ye wala san cash power. Okay, ni nata boto R22 gaso ikoye wili keme wili tannin sey dalasi keme lulu 118,500 ikoye wale dundi gaso kunna yo bota je iko staffol la paso e kamendi la staffol ye dalasi wil tallul nin killing anin dalasi taworo ni lulu ko ye wale dundi staffol la depanso kunna bari ikoye nata korgeto fanasan dalasi wil tallul so korgeto ni malon ye mintole de dawala bar butun iko inata ka allowance of fana di ngamra suta do kulal minul beje kantu ka fa en night allowance o kanyanta dalas wil tannan nin konondo dalas kema warawula dalas tallul iko yewole night allowance jo andu iko inata cemento fana sanga nin korgeto do mem fana kanyanta wil tannan nin konondo dalas kemelul dalas muwanni lulla yo inata ice machine o nyim fana nata problème o soto ila foroto ikoye pompo sawo fanaye o pompo nyin yemen jo kunna dalas wil tan sabani nani dalas keme saba dalas tan nani iko yewole dundi o kunna bar butu men fo nata nde jahale Ibrahim bawo nyimmu sate do kuwete village development committee intenga mellong katara do ko la satele buke yilla nyimma ko ibe jor soto la jele satela yirwa ibe loren wala kunna yo bari lañin committee yo ka mitinol minul ke ni mitinol ke fanjo ko do lay ka fu mi ko sitting allowance ye men jowo kunna wala tata kanyan dala sibil kansaba yo ni nata boto o sitting allowance nyinto iko nata pompi kuto fana sanko tanke dala sibil mu wannin nan ke o be borin kolaje nata korgeto sanko tanke dala sibil mu wannin saba Ibrahim butum sunkaro nata si birin sunkaro sita iko staffolo inyanta sukuro sanala kadi staffola dala sibil mu wanta e sukuro sangala ya talay dam mangol tem so en sebula yenyin dulal jibe jandimbe jila katambi dinkra do la mini alonko iko e depanso keje Ibrahim.
Yeah, once again mbal tentu lambal jayla jiberal be dawoda alin video ata alinga share prun se karang se lesino land je because nyinna mu ko timi ya lonko an program na famu wala but in the banko big farming from Gambia the same thing all the time bawni system o mi ya lonka poros tabe disorganize rin nyama na tuta nyinde nyama hande mun kodi le ka pump wo banko kan wo banko manyan at develop la no bawo mol man community interest nga value mi ya lonka sembe na fa bawo nyin ko do min be ka jani nyin dula to tenti min ka fo kata example la gunjur fama fele bawo demand interest woto le places like Banjul wol to fem fama interest may bimbe futala wol ton bari nyin nyan dakela en ton mu misil mo leti what we said nin ko do mi ya lonka be ko nearly 7 million US dollar wo pompita gunjur bada to just go yeta gunjur bada to be ya jibe ala situation no be nyame ye gunjur funding kele jibe ibe empty nyame in terms of kadoko soto and all those things you will expect the facilities le create la wo bada to mi ya lon ko ase banko nafa ase gunjuru nafa mi ya lon ni melo hanu na street light ol fango me Johnson Orton setale no ngi fen no school ol loje wala nga technical skill centers lo mi ya lon ko ase banko nyin nafa because wo bada wo potential le soto ni a jibe binga Chinese so la ko min fo nin dara no investment ken do be Gunjur bi wol ma nyanna la fish meal o ke no dulat because fish meal factory min be Gunjur is just so temporal. You know, study ken young boys wolle nata na ye la kodin din keje kodo min ka nyanta soto la bada to nyanta fish meal o kila no Gunjurul office meal o manyanna lola bada to age bulli bawo industrial parks in keje lem tol min be western countries solto bawo Gunjuru la bada mu ecotourism area lo mi yalon ko damma mu economic generating machine neti pour ka Gunjuru na fa nin Gambia ni industry sol nata Gunjuru e santo la wala na dulal mi yalon ko mol la tamanta je ngo government nyanta tara la pour ngo company sol ta ngi samba dulal to min yalon ko ila fo nin kele ka bondi je internal migration na kombo ma fawal isa je se tax break nin di la wala mi se funding wala jo pour isita no walito bar wo ma nyanna lola bada to bawo na la to nyoka na so ka na bafa nyofa bar sa in fish meal o hayna be sun kan ka wa sabu ni ecotourism hotel ol ni motel ol wol be destroy ta wol meka ko di soto no wot ba ke ba nyun no nyim bala fa warata la nyim manke only fisheries team amanke only Gunjurti the whole over in the Gambia nim bada na bada to damma e fisheries ndi mo me ya lon ko is also more use more me ya lon ko man capacity soto fo nyam you have the whole government system me ya lon kaka nearly 7 million tai wodi wala ko ko ali nyim manage alfa wali hanni ma account kendo fa so mobu ka na ye quarterly auditing ke jibe ko do min nyam tan fo be investment la wala le target min seti bawo ite ko do tala dro ya jurumu a layman bulu because nyini min be nyindulato I don't see any of them me special expertise soto to deal with this secretariat positions nyim president position bornia deal imang check and balance keje the system in be porous rincon na system obe nyami male nyanta mine expect la je but at the end of the day nim mol ya lonko ka min make inyanta wo develop la so that it will because min dole be into la tol mu ke balleti dingol wol fanan na balu nyanta tarani ne kan they need to live better life is getting more expensive kordal banta sotola at some point hani bi problem o sakoyde mamaringol wol mumoringol wol be live la nyaadi nyanta mira la wolle la mol mi ya lonko be dulato not coming tolle be nyindulato but at the end of the day you have a whole government system me ya lonko in ko sifalta ya dispense to a special community but the okodo molbe yalon ko nyanta wol oversee la at that level at the micro level wala mu only the fisheries assistant wala the mini yalon ko me bulubani marafa ngolo imalo nyim project ko fanga mo mededi nyini fana mfanga malon ko nyin ko nyin anyanta mine kela because ima capacity so I know the people who you mentioning but hanli ya capacity so mo nyanta check and balance kela le system mo biyanka be nyini moditol abe audit la so that nyintinya level of tinyaro water kela no without more long ko at least 3 months or 6 months le be caring nyanta lon na le nyinke and all those things so Gambia is a sad situation that doesn't necessarily mean ko be mo kilin ne kungo no ma wala be sate kilin ne kungo no bar nyimban ko kata nyama be silo min kan at develop la no silo kam fonin taranum no ko change wala the system need to change. But at the end of the day, as I say, the buck has to start with the leadership. Leadership miya lonko ay nyinko bula it witakan under their watch. Keba Nuha abaraka baba ke ye continue analysis la bari sila ye gas power min fanam fo ikwe kaminsang wo gas power dum wo santa within mun duration ne ye okodo minta because korketo fana nearly about 70,000 young dollars or more be sanna korketo about 50,000 keno fego but come min for dorom how can the whole system be operated me alon ko payment voucher man taraje fe man taraje tous yena ya for wrong nyin number lekeje and people just take it in face value and ya accept wo nyama. That's really sad kebanwa ite be nyin system ko no le you are a top civil servant here ya jele nyin system ka operate nyaming at company level at private level ye water yo jokta pose with our system me ya lon ka nyin sifa allow because nyin tekela no jam atekela no jam the system was place nyin atekela no jam hanen mamira wala atekela no in a more serious countries. So go ahead kebanwa baraka baba once
baraka Ibrahim just purka murunnan koma do man drong yalo ngafale commune tanje ye management central management committee sotola me yalon ko wollel marata account fulala and then ila officer in charge wala mo la kasha nyinti wo fana marata account dola nyin dammawol man nyolon pour ka ko nyin seneyandi drom wol ya kala muta jumal lel mo binta jata fode toure anin salisar wollel marata account dola so wol marata account fulalla bari account kilin na di auditor la so auditor fana le account kilin dam malaka jam bari itole même fo auditor le wala me tol marata account fulalla bari kilin dam mala bondina anno account o nyimbe Reliance Financial Services yo o taymo nyin kodo men beje kanyanta dalas wil keme dalas wil tan sabani woro dalasi keme woro la dalas tan nani anim butut tan saba yo mol min yalon koy marata pour ka kodo nyim bondi account o nyinto wollel mu binta jatati fode toure anin salisar ñinul be tangé satera kon yo bari de officer in charge me yalon ko fana marata wo account dola me yalon ko e ka fenko ñina ke je ja oil company karwo kari e ke charge dalas wil tanna o kodo nyin kata account o mento obe Zenith Bank le o Zenith Bank nyin officer mi marata wala me alon ko wala ka kodo nyin bondino wala bintu quality so nyine be tanjey bari komi ngafo nyamen dron ila Central Management Committee wal malon ko bintu kolibe mararin nyi account o nyina bintu koli dum fana malon ko binta jata nim fode tourning salisar wal fana marata nyin account dollar bari butung bintu koli at marata account o menna balance men beje o account o nyinto temboto dalas wil tan sabani lulu dalas tan sabani killing anim butut mo nin kononto wala bo account o nyin kono o tembo so pour ka tambe drum but kamurun nan kana gunjur la défense to hanibi pour ka kol ko indi drum auditor la report o nyin wala ni auditing be kala auditing ka aka base sango kartan nim fulala kam so accounting ka base ning accountant will be account dadala e ka dada kartan nim ful sango sanji wo sanji bukol ka daka soronne ye fan kontibo ka jibe e be tembe jumale to foy gagné so to foy man gagné so to wala nin a akara e man gagné so to mun dalila yatna wol dol ka ke management accounts lete analysis reports me alon ko ka kiskisro ke ka jibe ko mun dalila yatna nyin sango kono man gagné so to ñin ya sabu say manager dum dol manager na ferol ñanta kala monete pour kaaje ko jari nga gagné soto wala jari handi man gagné soto bare kana boy fana so be mu kulet me alon ko akaden sankartan nim fulol yo bar gunjur na ta fa ko ten ko ye tulo sang je fanko generator me alon ko akodo kanyanta dalas wil tanni woro dalas kemenanal inata babaro fana sang dalas wil tanni lulu dalas keme woro o botaje e koye building contractor jo me alon ko butum alon foye bullole ke ilanin Fisheries center nyin to ban kanto e koye contractor jo dalas wilim wan pour ka doko ke odulato yo inata ko tanke tulo sang bar tulo nyim fo generator lo ban fo fendole me mawke je ko bronco e tulo le sang e machine tulo o tata kanyan dalasi wil kononto dalas keme kononto dalas tallulla yo bari iko president fana na tanu njele bar birim president tata je nin sole sang dalas wil kononto ye wole fa baluta je so be boru moje inata ne bundal fana sa men kanyanta dalas wil sey dalas keme fula inata sibo fana sam pour ka kankara oke o kodo fana kanyanta dalas wil sey dalas keme o boru moje iko inata sinsimo sam pour ila ice sinsimol o kodo fana kanyanta dalas wil wara wala dalas kemelul ina tamurum ko den operator minul beje iko yol fana jo dalas wil wara wala dalas kemefula dalas tallul pour wol ka suta do ko men kela night allowance and then ina ta penturo fana sang pour ka masimo pentur malum masinji malam e moto ko ndi ko dronko e penturo le sang pour ka pour masimo o fana ko do kanyanta dalas wil wara wala dalas kemefula dalas tallul inate fanjo ko tan sitting allowance la dalas wil warawul so ni yin ko be jube Ibrahim malla fi pour ka bula be no makabe kilin fo bari nyeme yitande wala nyinti ko control teje maralole teje meya men sa yitande ko BDC minul yalon ko sembo be tolle la pour ka nyinul crossi ka jube ka je ko do nyanta tamala nyami ngay tama o nyama wala man taraje bari butum ite VDC fana blame no la bawo ni ajibe e auditor la report me yitande wala nyinti ko ministry men fo marata fisheries la wol fongol man safero ke ka yitande ko to le jorangol minul di nyim molla mun joran si fallel bar hanni nata ministry nyum fa jube o fa do man ni wol ni nata man sakunda fa jube na central government député na finance minister ñinin kale fo gambia man sakunda ye buko sotole me alon ko man sakunda fo la fengolu melul boko man sakunda la bungolu ilam jorangol ilam masingolu ila fengol feng me alon ko man sakunda la tamu fo ye buko sotole ka safi men kono bay ka fu men ko fixed assets register finance minister ñine fo député le ko e masoto itu atep malo man sakunda fo e mun jorandel soto asset sol melul be man sakunda bulu na finance minister ma alon so sai ninna finance minister ma long Gambia man sakunda fa mum fennel bento mum asset le bento lugul e ibe mune jeeno la fisheries what it is fisheries fa ita wol jala enola bawo ministry of finance wollel nyanta tamanser kendo yitan la nyimolla kaje ko nin ali fen samme alon ko asiyobe tambila sanji kilina yeah womu asset le me alon ko asiyobe tambila sanji kilina andanga be muna fa sambala nan doku bunda tole wo e ka fole asset wo nyanta safelan anyanta kala register konol so nimman sakunda fango yoke deni nyanta training nyin kelale kaje ko ministries and departments e kaminu for any agencies e kaminu for MDS wol fanal nyanta wo training sifa sotolale e nyante la fengol marala nyaadi le nyante la asset sol safela nyaadi le andun sango sang wo fana nyanta depreciate la nyaadi le wala nyinti ko fengo nyin damu menti sango sang adaka jile adajita nangamo menna wo mu dépense lati but wo mu accounting adjustment lati nte dun nola ko na puka afomole ja nimbe confuse la bare butu anyanta safela nyami inyanta wol train lale e baaje la ko fisheries ni wol yo training soto wol fanal sina ye nyin community fisheries central fanal train ko anyanta kala nyami bare audito le mbey yitande wala nyinti ko operating manual fo man taraje do ko nyanta tamala nyami nga be nyanta safelal pour nyin kamala nim mo kutol nata ya yitandi la ko okay ite nyim bukol karambang do ko nyanta tamala nyami ne nyinen karo soto yana yen nyinen ka ni ba train la ay si mo dala me alon ko ay do ko nyinno ata bala buko jubela abola do ko nyin koras la kaje ko okay mimbe buko to nyin ka do ko nyin sambo wala nyam na nyinen karo soto ay nyinen ka jankol katamaten ni do ku kuto soto haninte ninga na do kudla dobula ntata do kudla doto ya lonna ko benna do ko keno la bar wo nyaawo nyaay kan train la ko tenke mbesera men na palaso to jandinga mari bitala ka hando ba kay yala wo hando ba nyin aka me yitandi na wala nyinti ko ntaka nyir reportol lel deda nyir reportol ka bo system wala nyin la karinet ate details nyin dila na ba wo nte fon na londindi wo nyanda futala woto nyanta wolonnal but at high level nkanyi statutory accounts lel deda nkanyi management accounts lel deda nyinul kata director ya nyindolel kata board pack nyindo pour na board of directors ap soli yitandina nkanyi report sifa lel borindi system o kono wollel kanyinde e ka training ketene baro be nyaawo nya operations manual nyanta tarlaje yo niti mari nata do kudla yaje ko okay nyinul ka ko yin tamandi nyame amang ke silati me alon ko ase do ko nyin teriyandino la sa sone andino nite farindiro ke woto manual o nyin kono inyanta woto fana safela le kayitandi ko okay sai nyin do ko ni bakela e ka keten ye version 2 da operations manual pour nyin kammala nim modo lafta jubela nunto do ko nyin kake nyaadile anin sai akake nyaadile ise fulol nyinul jube kuwol katamaten do ku lawda nte mol minul be do ko lam ko to Ibrima ila do ko nka fo ene ya safe moy kamenke abe safe killing every step ya be safe nga be taradula killing nga ke bukoti ay taralare ni ta bota je tata nim mo kuto nata akarando ka sonel e ka fo le operations manual bari auditor la report e meyi tan wala nyinti ko nying fisheries central wi tata daminul beto operations manual man taraje andum ila asset solo min yalon ko fisheries central tamolu ila doran jorangolu me yalon ko abe tambila sanji kilin nale andum abe tine sambala nan do ku gunda nyintole wol nyanta safela buko min kono register min kono wol dodol man taraje so mu kullel me yalon ko abe nyilla njuro samananne mol katame kum fele e be kol kela ni ajibe e ko preko kilo tanko non tonin kilin sang o tata kanyan dalas wil woro dalas keme sama dalas tawworo wala so preko yin dunta damento foye bungol loje ba yante na mfamata tala Gunjur le butum malong fo wala be kering jeba ye kapnelol sang ye subo fana sang pour banna sungar salo membe kering pour la staff wala subo yo fana sang wo kodo ni kodo men dundi subo nyum ko nawtara kanyan dala sibili dul dala skeme fula so nyinul be mo kullati me yalon ko Ibrahim saate bele nyante muna fanna nyim projet ko bari nga menje wala nyinti ko mo dantan ne ke muna fangala andum minul yalon ko wala mu ya kantar lalti wala mu la village development committee e mantra kuke kan nyinto men sa yitandi ko e be nyinul control kan ne kaje ko kodo nyanta dunna damin ay dunje Ibrahim se bele je nyambas.
Yeah, thank you so much once again, Kebanua. What we are doing is we are analyzing the performance report on community fishery centers. This is part 2 of it. And as Kebanua says, when you don't have a system, it will be very difficult. It's so sad, a finance minister, that to just admit that they don't have a fixed asset register and he's still standing on his job, because when you don't have it, then how can you trust places like Gunjur, for maybe three trucks or three whatever, or all these small assets that are there, but Kotoma Sadio Bayanko, a responsible government will not provide money to communities, for merely gaining political capital without building local capacity and setting operational standard. It will be a situation of operating without being established, recipe for failure in meeting targets. So Kebanwa nyini kumaya ta baba bakele na mansakundalo mi ya lonko ibije, they need to be serious, because nyine asabu wati ninga mansakundali for amanke ko bawo masakundale marata Gambia la ko maybe la because ko a parent in the house ni tata je yekuo ku bije fo e tole nyene ka wo ku wala asabu mostly leadership min bije nke tanke first thing bawo nyimu masibo le timi ya lon ka be hapun kan na banko kan en no janim bitala fanan ko to ma buba baro nyinin karo ko nyim bala fa warata baba bakele silan tol min tol mol na banko wala na community sol bitala nyato nyaadi ni system sifale ben na banko kan where operation manual mansoto, where asset registered mansoto Ministry of Finance min marata na banko la fanko mume bela woma long asset tol mi ya long ko atefanke declare atefanka sompuri yesang wolbe janjan dindami sila nima wo fango long sila be wol follow la op nyaadi katun coming kotoma e mimfo ni moli na fe na inate fe na mini ya lonko ima capability soto to run such a finance, such a money, such project. Ni ma so te me training de yo kodo ta dro ya dump into odula ba VDC akatanya min na satellite. It's so sad. I think VDC should nyanta wol burkalale ba o yeta je a VDC mi ya lonko CBOs because ila capacity waratale ila responsibility warata baba bakele barkabila keba ya jibe dorong mol min sutiyata la akole ko ngar register ngal nominate VDC ko gunjur ta ka wala nyame ka kabila kabila momo isu comme ni ko wi kabilo mo fula fi kabila seyo kabilo mi ya lonko keba bi ateta alon na fo nyini min jita they need to have a financial background, they need to have a lawyer background, they need to have money, institutional knowledge and all those things because we check it can be every tom they can hare mi alon kasuti ada okay bala aya keje wolle nyanta marala sati la finance la so comme sadio nyimmin for doron recipe for failure at work la no wonyam when you want because of saying company le kana gunjo you have businesses coming there, for example, it's going to be in VDC, mini along entry point managers all with the council or me along Catalan CEO there, but it only nyanta finance le nyanta legal le, then business transaction le nyanta all everything. Nima more work capacity so the whole system need to be revamped. It need to be quenched from fresh. So that the resources will as a mobile because definitely if I'm a victim leti ba ho ni moma millo yeuta dunga bulokono especially moma nala kane account and all those things ba finance minister is too busy amalo fama bimbe happen kan in Gunjur. So that's some of dollar school conditions as a people but ni aje concentrate Gunjur one ni Gunjur online neti the one the more la quality discourse la be model blame la when the system it is as a system will be as it is in 12 la back ya to put nga wali discourse because time seated put ndol mu maybe be dauda nga lonko really speaking Gambia like because diaspora send something a speaker to Gunjur when you call this mu maybe nyanta soto la Gunjur so potentially maybe need to be harnessed for ningel manya ne dadu na ni londi tiol manya ne dadu na inula because ida bondila nyinku walito so that it's a proper system also to me alonko more base na fala. But unless and until being and dark in into ngadiamo ngana borito ku yale ning dunia la nyo saban ning fengola pour it's a proper system mota ngalon isa agenda na fangola resources also na bankol la hospitals all jay generate setan se dinni wala karankendo dila it's a skill center slow because skill center man dara Gunjur mi ya lon ko isa fo isa fo ninkel ni dinni nela isa tara kapinte ya ni wala ni ya ke individual le ka ke but community organizations man tara je mi ya lon ko is training kids, is training our youth in IT, in carpentering, in other skills and all those things. Mi ya lon ko nyimbada ning other resources mi ya lon ka be Gunjur damado because that place is endowed with natural resources. And until and unless we manage it properly, mbetana komal as a people, and work minke nyato minanda mare sonko la lembenyo blame la unless and until new system si faina. And we have to have a government. Me ya long will be caring enough, so much so that bankola resources all is a take care. Alaji no acha bisimila acha.
Yeah, abaraka baka Ibrahim, abaraka. Pruka kamurun naila nyinin karo kan, nyinin karo kanu, nyin problemo nyinul nsaban no nyadile. Because sa mfutata reporto nyim bandulato le. But pruka ya maroke, wole be kala nyintiko, Gunjur Village Development Committee, inyanta silale ye fangol jube, ida mongol ye kacha, bawo nyintinyaro akata jele, mobe ya jele. So, puru nyin kamala kadung ka jube, kodo nyin kasarata nyamin, tumando, yafu nyamin, mawo capacity soto, mawo londo soto. Bari nyimu kulet mi alon ko ni lafta jube la at high level. Ye même fo wala nyinti ko iko ye na fulo men dundi dalasi million nani wil kema wor ye men dépense dalasi million saba wil kema lul yo ni o bondi million nani wil kema woro kono million killing anin dalasi wil kema wala tutaje bar kodo min be bank wotana kanyang wil kema lul la sang wil kema lulo nyi wodunta min tole ni a 30 be VDC ma accounting karam fereng mbe kis la nyin nela altol ko ale kodo men dundi altol fangole men fu auditole million nani dalas wil kema wor yo bari ale dépense min beke million saba dalas wil kema lul woto million killing dalas wil kema wonyanta taral larin sa kodo min be bank umu dalas wil kema lul le sa wil kema lul do wodunta min tole VDC ni atrebe approach ke la pour high level bawut man do eta londo sot la pour kadum kanyim kaytol be killing jube ka be jaba kesa woto bar ni nata totalol jube mo nyanta tarle kono me alonko anyanta o fahamro sotulale pour ka nyinul kontibo ko do dunta dami yafo yo pour ka ta localité ni ajibe figol da majibe tan ron dala million talante o yemantal adunta dami mo malo so auditol fanal me nyininka da o to le men fo auditol le wali yo le safe tata ya report saying atuta mol minul responsible ta ila VDC wala nyanta nala kaje ko e actionota ko nyinto yonte be ya marla men wala nyinti ko e kana si kanyinul jibe ka fo kom fa wala mollel mu nyinulde ye bula do ko wala ni man tra do ko ke kana nyama e nyante e bondi la jere wala minul ya lon ko e tinyaro ke e policeol kum ye kiskisiro ke ya je ko ye evidence soto la e policeol kumandi ye dum policeol buleta ye kiten ñine ñanta kela nkana ñi masala hal jibe ka fako kar mum baadi moyte walla na kabila ke baadi ngolam ñinti nga nya kase ala kolla abe tiñaro kela walla ñimmu molete mi alon ko fawol kambe ko he kari birnga dun tanim projet ko da harje firim batale ajuba e kordal lo ajuba e motol sang abe kebal solo ko dola mol ñante fanyinen kala ñin kayin ko do min be nite nga ko do ñin kabo min tole ko do ñinga kanyim men din tolla fonte la ñanta ñin sotla bam fo sate be la ñanta ñin sotla mol ñandela ke fanyinen kanyen so ila management structure ni tumando e ñanta ma ko ro sotola Ministry of Fisheries la bulu pour ka aje ko ye structure londi me alonko checks and balances better rajele kashi akilin kana taraje me alonko atlebe ko do mutala atlebe ko do sambala bank atlebe joro kela atlebe safero kela wo wembe yitandi do wala ñinti men diata ya bole kala bawo motaje men ba konti bol kasiya ñanta support sotulal me alon ni membe ko do mutala wakana ke moti membe ko do ñin safa même be kodo safela o fana kana ke moti me yalon ka ba sambala bank nin tiñaro be kala je woto nyimmo sabol wollel be den nala tumando asikeno nyimmo sabol kono mo kliya taraje me yalon ko ate sonna o tiñar sifa e kabe sate bela nyaata tale jibela ate sonna aba fala nyinule no ate kala nin a kala mutafana ko nyin ketale ase reporto di ala nyaaton ko la ko nyinule ko do ketal nyinam kuti me yalon ko controls ka ke bawo nta fono la pour ye system wol ke je bawo ni aji ben to la central government fam computer system wol fam hani bi ben nasirin so wala tan la fita ka nyin community fisheries central la reporto nyin danjang pour nga dum fanna do to me alon ko abe dending strategy la gambia man secondary strategy men londi kabo 2021 kata fo 2025 inyanta kol minul kala do kol nyanta tamala nyamen pour nyin kambala ka yirwa samana gambia banko kan anin mun nyafa kulel sotota je anin mun lanjur kulel sotota kol nyinul kono lafta pour ko fana kacha anin atra wato nyin sotota bar butum na yamarobe dannaten na Ibrahim pour ka gunjur kolu tanje kolu banjul anin bakaw ke yamari nyin nako the mali si lanin village development committee yeni mol minul ta do ko la ye kontibo ya make sure ko illa do ku lallel muy kane nyaale la kul kan ye maslaha bondi la kul kono ye toñanin sobe ya dundi nyim mol kono pour nyin kamalay se jamano be nafa abaraka baka Ibrahim
baraka bake kebanu wo analysis kende ata a koita mumu me bela komi yafo nyamin from micro to macro level nyanta organize la enough than this because mfano kodo mbole tilimbali kan anda ka minke nindara nu wato minna aide ke baya tale hani se doko mu bebe ke ila balo mu bebe ila ke baya dula niman alaman imako ini dignity te fala bawo ite enough pension sotola ite enough health cover sotola when you are vulnerable because of lobitanol ma capacity so hani sasaring mi ya lonka be mala you are going to go off ni wobondi daje hani mum bunjan le lo bunjan se taraje nyaaw nya sila man tara bunjan li dara suntu ko be doli dala jana ima running water nim fengol soto sama ko ne la moto fawte dunna no fawla dulato because of silol man dada because is ko do ta nyaaw nya ita silo dada no kabu gunjur kata birkama as an individual we can only do that nintaro nata together as a community with a central government mini along with foresight sort of idea sort of ye mol ken silo kan and the government really the carelessness here coming in Kotoma Sajo Bayani ya Fonyami yena draw ye molita sabe jinkol ya long ke benyami tenti wolman fe wo fenno man seneno doro ko ina dabo dile ko alta alnata seno la fe wo fentiji so jita min ke kanyo singo se doro and what happened in Gunjur anen nyimbada borindo la ba Gunjur fa fele malo ya Kenya dina bari nim fenti dale se min fanka chano baba ndunu wo wali ko do be tale ya nyimi ye nyolo akan sal chambi janna ka bota half daile banjun but Gunjur ngol ye visa wolti baba kale ba nyin zone nyin community fisheries centers jaman mu be Gunjur fa felen ka wala ko discuss ba o fembe safarin ne demanding nse min discuss a crazy ta nyawonya bar banjun wo fenne fa man present mi ya lon ko audition so you will expect ko a serious government ninyi audito le ni report ke police will going to be hand over to the police and the further investigation say ajibe for criminal record criminal damage bi jele mi ya lon ka keta barbutu wo be manke that tells the system on gamin soto and how on serious follow purka serious purka sobe ya and ka discipline and purka banko sambato another level we hope we have that and very soon because no one time kebaluha yes, now what in sotole definitely puru at least ngalon mini be on the table asiata but butun sa jibe nga wa bao the macro economy policy, the state-owned enterprises reform, debt management, public-private partnership, external auditing accountability and transparency. Ulibe mu fenneti me ya lonko nyante kachalale because nyini mu kuleti me ya lonko nyante understand bawo nimmi ya lon kabe hapun kela banko kan these complex issues and all we need to understand them ni me understand ni buluba ni mareta and all because if rely la molle ka meni ya loko ni ma lucky definitely will be sambala dinko le kono manju ture mfamala brother ko thank you Ibrahim and your partner very educative program I wish the whole Gunjur is online watching this program we really need to sensitize our people about what is going on around, our beach, because yes, this beach is our jewel. I'm telling you. Iba fola ko tulolu findi ta karadola ni mun dolla tulole di. I'm telling you. Hanni mun tulule be Gambia nin komba manage la nyine nyama be Gunjur. Ni da Gunjur it's so sad. Ni ajibe wo bada la potential be nyami wo coastal area mu mebe. Kenyolu the environment, sale environment o mabar so manadi at alai. I'm going to have the environment issues with Sidi Ali Imam. So ajibe the Islamic perspective and then the economics and ko nato Nuha binara jannen solve the sand minings mini along ko bije se nyo ba foto ni se nyo kemo kendoliti at the end of the day wala community la resource leta mi along ka semben nafa but no mo kilimo yata aya samba temporal nafa doro ba hani mum bumbale lo ibe la kono kilinde ko at the same time ide o bumba lo lopitano ibe min dala bori mantoroje ni sata anytime running water tije so nyimu kunkan sumunaleti so but we have to make people aware so that these are long nyini dole nyanta minkela we need to organize ourselves very very well purunga nyinkeno kebanu go ahead with some of the subheadings ngaminita nge read sign and in this the strategic aspect of na discussion or the street to water nindanta daming what to do ninga chance to continue ibisimla once again.
Yeah, abarka baka Ibrahim. Nka nila dunyo kuntaje nyindo lafta purka fo angale kamon labao wole be sona ya lambulu te nyimu strategy leti me alonko masakunda ya alandila no strategy dunna ko be nyamin afonyin aka kolere do manding ka yelmandi angale kamola kabonang kayel mandi man ka kamala kabonang angale kamal so
go ahead that's fine
yeah okay ni na tajibe sorry mbatunga file ni yala
Yeah, once again, we are talking about all the issues, concerning strategies, concerning Gambian economy, and how we can strategize to progress to another level, because, the level we are, is not good enough to be, and we cannot be comfortable. We are educated, we are aware, we moved from corner to corner, and now we expect and we demand more from our leaders, our government. And for that being the case, we are going to talk about the macroeconomy policies of the Gambia, the state-owned enterprises, how we're going to reform them, the debt management, because, the debt burden in the Gambia, is just mushrooming, from one to, on a high-speed lane. And unfortunately, not only us, but our kids and their kids are going to be burdened with those loans, that we are taking. Nobody is saying we should not take loan, but we need to be responsible. And when we take it, we need to put it into, our economic sectors or the sectors that are going to give us back something, so that we will not be in debt, forever, and kind of manacling our environment, our country, and public-private partnership also, external audit accountability and transparency. Accountability and transparency, very important.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. Just to give a little context of what we are looking at the moment, the government of the Gambia in May 2021 produced a document. This is through the Ministry of Finance that looks at the Gambia government public finance management strategy for the years 2021 to 2025. Now, this report came out, or this document came out in May 2021, so it's pretty new if you look at the report. So what actually they are trying to do, this is the Ministry of Finance, is to look at what can be reformed within our governance structure. What can they do to make sure that they improve structures, existing structures, or even bring in new structures to ensure that we maintain development in the country. Now, first and foremost, what I wanted to look at is the first point, which is the macroeconomic policy management. So the Ministry of Finance put together this document to look at the objective. One of the objectives for the macroeconomic policy management is the fiscal forecasting. So what they are trying to do is to be able to forecast revenue and expenditure, and even debt. So and to make sure that that forecasting process is improved. Now, the second objective is to improve budgeting and compliance with medium-term economic forecasting framework. So this is a framework that looks at the medium term, how we can improve budgeting within this, the medium term. So medium term, you're looking at a 5-year period, for example. How can we ensure that the budgeting process is compliant, and also it is sleek, and also it is efficient? So we have seen a lot of inefficiency within our civil service, and all these things are affecting the development of the country. So the Ministry of Finance came up with this plan to look at the medium term, which is 5 years, 2021 to 2025, to do these objectives under the macro economic policy management. So what they intend to achieve out of this, so in other words, the outputs of this strategy will be a tax expenditure policy which will be developed, and they will be able to produce a report on revised relevant laws and regulations affecting tax administration. Because if you look at the tax administration, or even the tax regimes in the Gambia, I always say this, especially if you look at what they call the company tax, what we call in the UK the corporation tax. So these are the taxes paid by companies that are registered with the registrar of companies, and they are limited companies in the case of the Gambia, because we don't have any public limited liability companies there. We do have state-owned enterprises, but those are owned by the government. They are not owned by the public. So in the case of the Gambia, we only have limited liability companies. And these companies pay a corporation tax. But the sad reality is, Ibrahim, these companies, whether they make a profit or not, they still pay taxes. And how do they do that? Is simple. The way the company tax regime is structured in the Gambia is that they look at two things. When the year ends for the company, they look at how much profit have you made? Or first and foremost, has this company been audited? If you have not been audited, they calculate 1.5% of the total revenue that you make, what they call turnover. Whatever that amounts to, they put it on one side. And they look at your profit as well. Whatever profit you've made, they calculate 27% on that. So they compare the 27% on profit and 1.5% on sales. Whichever is higher, that's the tax you pay. So if you are a company that doesn't make any profits, obviously your profit is going to be zero. 27% of zero is zero, but 1% of your sales will give you a figure, and that's the figure you pay, because that figure will be more than zero. So even though your organization, a company, is not making any profits, but still you must pay tax. And this is why businesses are dying, and this is why a lot of investors that come in the country get sound financial advice not to set up companies. They go in as a sole trader or a partnership, because as a sole trader, the first 24,000 of your profit, you don't pay tax on that. So anything above that, that's when you start paying tax. And that same rule applies to the partnership. So what the Ministry of Finance is trying to do is to be able to regulate the laws that affect our tax administration. So what that means is not defined in the document, but it's something that they are aiming to achieve out of this strategy, the macroeconomic policy management. Now, they also want to achieve annual variance analysis reports. So variance reports are reports that look at what you plan to achieve and what you have achieved. What is the difference, and why do you have that difference? So if you say the total revenue that you intend to get in 2021 is $22 billion, and then you end up getting $10 billion, for example, so you have a shortfall of 12 billion. What is responsible for that? So these kind of reports are the ones that they are now trying to achieve. But I'm surprised that these are not even existing in the country. As a Ministry of Finance, I would expect them to be looking at these numbers closely and decide, why are we having variances? Why is our tax revenue low? That's the variance. What is affecting our tax revenue? Is it because we are increasing tax rates and then businesses are not performing because businesses are closing? So all these things inform decision making. So, and the challenges that they have within this policy framework, Ibrahim, is the lack of data. So what they have said is that that is work in progress, but lack of data is inhibiting a lot of things under this policy framework. So they can't really progress because they don't have the data. So if you are not recording fixed assets within the fixed assets register, how can you identify the difference between the assets that you think you have and the assets that you have recorded? There is no way you can do it because the data is not there. And this is why they are having problems implementing this policy. Looking at the policy framework between 2021 and 2025. So that is one of the policy frameworks that the Ministry of Finance highlighted. And they also intend to ensure that every 2 years, what they call the biannual review, reports will be produced. And these reports will be based on economic policy and development priorities. And again, that cannot happen because there is lack of data. Now, you know as much as I do that if you want to conduct a research on Gambia in any field, the first problem that you face is access to data because there is nothing. So if without data, you cannot definitely make sound policy decisions. And this is why the country is not developing at a pace that it needs to be. So these are all issues that this policy framework has highlighted, that without data, there is no way that they can achieve this by 2025. Now, going on, if you look at the next policy that I wanted to discuss is the state-owned enterprise reforms. But before I go into that, I will allow you to analyze what I have just mentioned.
Yeah, thank you, Nuha, once again. And Ebrima Sal-Cham says, Ebrima, your invitee is very intelligent. He made a lot of sense. Definitely he is. That's going to be an understatement to say he's intelligent anyway. But Kevan, this is sad anyway for a country that has been existing, for nearly 50 years, and this is the time they are thinking of some of the basic things that you think, any government, any institution, before they go, these things has to be in place, but this company tax, as you said, the tax system in the Gambia is too cumbersome, and the small businesses, small medium businesses so that should be the growth, the engine of the growth in our country, are dying in large number, and even these companies are there. You have some companies that are there, cowboy companies. They are bribing their way to individuals, because the system is there, not there. The system is too corrupt, and they are paying less tax. So because they are paying tax through the back door to individuals who will put on their big gowns and all those things and go physically and ask these people about tax. So when we have all these companies there, the turnovers, but the company tax, the taxable one, who report that also, if you can, if there is any mechanism that government will know, this is what you have, not individual businesses and because most of these businesses, I have nothing against foreigners and all those. We have Lebanese shops and businesses, and have a brother who is a manager in one of those businesses telling me you have government officials, ministers will come and they will just give them brown envelope or white envelope or whatever, so who decide what you have, and before we tax them, and if this sole trader thing, is that also a trick also to avoid tax? Any company can come and declare ourselves there. What are the mechanisms? Are there mechanisms so that we can know which is which, so that we can have a maximum return in terms of our taxes and all those things? Before you go to the next level, can you just please, explain some of these things that I've raised, but the bottom line should be the corruption. But the small, medium-sized businesses, that should be the growth of our economy. What are they getting out of all this reform from the microeconomic policy point of view? Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Ibrahim. Actually, this has posed a challenge to SMEs, that's small medium enterprises, because you come in as an investor, you want to establish a company, because obviously the advantages of setting up a company as to a sole trader are many, but one of the key advantages is the fact that the company is a separate legal entity from the directors or the director who set up the company. Now, if a company goes and take out a loan from a bank, for example, and the company is not able to pay, provided there is no personal guarantees within the loan agreement, that loan is solely for the company. If the company, in the event that is not able to pay, the bank will not go after the directors. So this is one main advantage of having a company, and it gives the entrepreneur, the director of that small company, the leverage to be able to have that peace of mind and start thinking how to grow that business. But if they're set up as a sole trader, the only incentive there is the fact that they have what they call annual tax-free allowance. So that annual tax-free allowance is $24,000 as of today. So if you make a profit as a sole trader, so let's say you have a corner shop somewhere, at the end of the year, you do your accounts and you've seen that your total sales is this much, less your total expenses, and this is your gross profit, this is your net profit. Now that net profit belongs to you because you and the business are one and the same. You are a sole trader, you own the business. So that business, sole trader business, is not a separate legal entity. What that means is that from the legal point of view, the company is seen as an individual, whereas the sole trader, your shop or whatever business you are doing, is not separate from you from a legal point of view. So if that sole trader business makes a profit, it's seen as the individual's own money. Now that money, the tax that you will pay will be based on how much comes after deducting the tax-free allowance at the end of the year, which is $24,000. So what that means, what that translates to in terms of monthly earnings. So this is the same tax-free allowance that employees get. So if you have an employee whose salary is more than $24,000 a year, that employee needs to be registered with GRA for tax purposes. Some people call it payroll tax, and you also need to register that employee with Social Security for their National Provident Fund, so that when they retire, there is some money in the pot for them. Now, a lot of these things are not happening in the Gambia, but maybe that will be a topic for another day. But based on the question from this macroeconomic policy framework perspective, now, sole traders' only benefit would be the $24,000, which is $2,000, by the way, for those who are having employees in the Gambia. If you pay your employees anything more than $2,000 a month, that employee needs to pay tax on anything that goes above the £2,000, following a scale. So up to, I think, 34,000. So from 24,000 to 34,000. So that 10,000 there, 5% tax is paid on that, because the first 24,000 you don't pay tax. So if your employee is paid 34,000 a year, they don't pay tax on the first 24,000. But the 10,000 that goes on top of that 34,000, they will pay 5% tax on that. So that is how tax administration in terms of income tax operates in the Gambia. Now, this is the only incentive for people who undertake sole trader businesses. But the advantage, again, is looking at it from tax efficiency perspective, because if that business is not a sole trader or a partnership, so the same rule applies to a partnership. So me and you join together, EB, as individuals, we set up a business. So we are partners, and we create a partnership deed. That is our agreement, how we are going to share our profit and all the rest of it. So we will all benefit from this tax-free allowance of 24,000, because that partnership is not a separate legal entity unless it is a limited liability partnership. But in the case of the Gambia, I'm not aware that a lot of people set up limited liability partnerships. So the partnerships that I know, I am in one partnership, and you know, we have employees of about 10 people that, you know, we look after. Now, that tax bracket is 24,000 tax-free allowance. So, but assuming that that business is not a sole trader but a limited company, so the profit of 24,000 that you have made, for example, or the 34,000 that you have made, you pay tax on the full 34,000 if 27% of that 34,000 is more than 1% of your turnover, or 1.5% if your company is not audited. So this is why, just to elaborate more, a lot of people or a lot of investors come in the Gambia and take advantage of that loophole in the tax regime. Instead of setting up a company, they set up a sole trader business. So that gives them 24,000 tax-free money in their pocket at the end of the year. Whereas if they are a company, they would pay at least 27% on that 24,000 tax-free money that they would have if they are sole traders. So this loophole is there. And I think what the government needs to do is to actually try to expand the tax base, but also reduce the tax rates, so that we can have proliferation of companies that will come in and invest and employ more and more people. So people who are conscious, who know what they are doing, a lot of them don't set up companies in the Gambia anymore because they know it's not to their advantage. And the other problem there is that, the Gambia Revenue Authority finds it extremely difficult to identify where these businesses are, because there is no register of these businesses in terms of addresses. So anybody can set up a corner shop anywhere, and the GRA would not even know, and they are making money. Now, all these contractors, these building contractors that take contracts from individuals who build houses, they pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. They are not registered with GRA. They are not paying taxes. So all these things are areas that the government needs to look at to ensure that they bring a system that will track all these activities, the economic activities that are going on. So that's why, from my point of view, if you look at the gross domestic product forecast of the Gambia this year, they are looking at about $100 billion. But that's not going to happen because, well, that figure is not right, because you have so much economic activity going on in the Gambia. Construction industry is booming, is making a hell lot of money in terms of gross domestic product, but that is not captured. It's not captured because these people are not registered as taxpayers. As a result, they are not paying taxes. So if you look at a building contractor who gets, say, let's say $300,000 from a contract within a year, out of that 300,000, if he takes out all his expenses, maybe ends up with, say, $150,000. That $150,000 is a profit. That profit should have attracted tax if that person is registered. But because that person is not registered, that money goes in his pocket without paying taxes. So what I mean by government bringing in measures to expand the tax base is to bring in strategies that will track all these economic activities that are happening locally within the local economy, give incentive for these people to come out voluntarily and register, just like it's happening here in the UK. People register voluntarily to declare their taxes because they are doing businesses, because there are checks and balances in place. If you go and open a bank account, you are asked to produce a TIN number. Now, this taxpayer identification number is from the Gambia Revenue Authority. They should have a database of all taxpayers or everybody who's registered. Now, they should have a process in place that links with these banks to ensure that the banks are reporting to the GRA the amount of revenue that is coming in these accounts. And that will open a point of inquiry for GRA inspectors to identify these people and talk to them about their sources of income. Now, these are all areas that we have tried to advise the government, but they are not listening. So I know it's a long and windy answer to your question, but to make it short, really, the advantage of setting up a business in the Gambia as a sole trader is because you get a tax-free allowance of $24,000 a year.
Yes, that's very clear, Kibanua. I think we will round it up here, and definitely, probably next week you're going to come and we can go into state-owned enterprises reform and the other aspect. This is so important, and our system is so porous, and I cry that country is bleeding, because of we don't have the management that we deserve in order to organize, to put a system. Because if the from Ministry of Finance, who don't have a fixed asset register, and you have a GRA, the revenue body, that don't have the data of businesses that are generating, and people meandering, people playing cat and mouse with them, and they cannot track them, and the country is bleeding, and at the end of the day, individuals are going around and collecting things. So it's total chaos in that country. And unless we get our acts together, that country will remain porous. and the individuals will be going, in rampage, asking for money and corruptions, and these businesses and all these people will be there. And the small businesses that our country should rely on, the Gambian businesses, they will be dying. And you have rogue business people who will come and bribe individuals, and the country's coffer will go dry. And it is so, so, so unfortunate. And I hope we have a leadership that will tap into this. And there cannot be any leadership that will come again in that country without coming after you, Nuha Ceesay, wherever you are, so that you can help us, you can streamline and organize our GRA and Ministry of Finance. Gambia is full of talents all over the place, but because of the ineffectual government, a government of inexperiences, a government that are inefficient, a government that are scared of talents, to go and fish their talents all over the country. The country is bleeding, but we can do more better in that country. That country should do better because we have the people all over the world that can come and shape that country into shape. And Gambians will be proud wherever we are. We will be proud of that country, and we will not be in the fringes of perpetually of high societies in other countries if we don't want to, So once again, Nuha, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thanks to our listeners wherever they are. Thanks to our manager, Lamin Jammeh, behind the scene. And thanks to all Gunjur online fans. We will be back. Tomorrow we have Imam Sidi Ali. We are going to talk about the environment, the environmental catastrophes that are happening all over the place. And we have to have the perspective from religion, from the Quran. Once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for your support to Gunjur Online.